Today we're going to take a really basic look at the Arduino Integrated Developer Environment, or the Arduino IDE. The Arduino IDE is an all-in-one tool that allows you to code, compile, and load programs onto your Geekduino or other Arduino board. The software is cross-platform, so it'll run on your Mac, PC, or Linux machine, and it's also open source, so it's possible to change. It's also extendable, so you can add all sorts of hardware libraries and software libraries for making the Arduino environment do exactly what you need it to do. The first thing we want to do is change some of the preferences. Under Windows, you're going to go to File Preferences, but on the Mac, you'll go to Arduino Preferences. We're going to skip over a lot of the preference features, but right now we're going to change Display Line Numbers. It's going to add line numbers in the code editor, and enable code folding. It's going to allow us to clean up our code a little bit. It's also good to know about this option, save when verifying or uploading. If you prefer to manually save and not have the program automatically save when you verify or upload, go ahead and uncheck this. Otherwise, you can leave it checked. Here we can see all of my line numbers now. This can be really handy once you get larger pieces of code and you need to start debugging. You also notice these little minus signs, and if I click that, this code folds up. That's the code folding option that we enabled. We've got a lot of different options in our main menu: File, Edit, Sketch, Tools, and Help. Today we're just going to take a look at Tools and make sure that we've got the same settings that we did in the Geekduino Getting Started guide. For your board, you want to pick the Arduino 2009 or 10.0. It's basically the board that the Geekduino is based off of, so it's completely compatible with this entry. For the processor, the Geekduino is using that Mega 328. For the port, you want to pick the same port that you had in the Geekduino Getting Started guide. If you don't see any ports or you have any port problems, go ahead and go back to the Geekduino Getting Started guide to make sure that your drivers are all installed correctly. Down at the bottom of the IDE, you actually see the board name, the processor name, and the port. It's a handy reference to make sure that you've got all of your settings right. Let's take a look at the basic tools we are going to use in the Arduino IDE. First, we have this check mark, the verify button. The verify is going to compile the sketch. The sketch is all of the code that's in this code editor. This up here is our sketch name. So what the verify button does is it will take all of the code here and convert it into a language that the Geekduino can understand. That's what compiling is. It compiles all of the code we have, converts it, and puts it in a little package so that we can send over to the Geekduino. Now, the verifying button doesn't actually send any data to the Geekduino, it just gets it ready. So you can verify even if you're not plugged into your Geekduino hardware. Next to it, we have the upload button. The upload button is going to take this code, compile it if it hasn't already been compiled, and then load it onto the board. So let's go ahead and hit the upload button. You see your compiling sketch, then uploading. You're going to notice some red LEDs on the Geekduino. Let's go ahead and upload again so we can see that. Those red lights flashing are actually the data going to and from the Geekduino. First, we send the program to the Geekduino, then the Geekduino echoes back the program's content so we can verify that everything was uploaded correctly. Now, this code doesn't actually do anything. This is sort of the bare minimum code that you need to successfully load a sketch onto the Geekduino. But the fact that we've got this done uploading message means that the code did go over to the Geekduino. We've got our new open and save buttons here. New will just make a new sketch with the bare minimum code just like before. Open will go to our default examples and libraries. So everything's here is from our Arduino folder that we installed in the Geekduino Getting Started guide. Again, if you don't see these two, make sure to take a look at the Geekduino Getting Started guide and make sure that all your files are installed correctly. You've also got your Arduino basic examples, which can come really handy while learning Arduino. Though for this video series, we're going to be going through the RG101 example menu. You've also got Open, where you can just open your own files, whether they're on your desktop or anywhere else. Finally, you've got Save, just a quick way to save whatever sketch you have. If you haven't saved it already, it'll give you an opportunity to name your sketch. Over here you've got the serial monitor. The serial monitor is going to open up a window, basically a console, where you can send data to the Geekduino and receive data from the Geekduino. Right now we're not going to be able to receive any data because the Geekduino is not programmed to do anything. In the serial communication video, we'll make heavy use of the serial monitor and you'll be able to see how data comes in and out. We can't send data to the Geekduino, and like I said, since there's nothing on there, nothing's actually going to be received or processed by the Geekduino. But remember when I said that those LEDs flash when we send data? So if you watch the LEDs while I send this long line of gibberish code, you'll see the red LED flash. And yes, all of that data that I sent was just that little flash. Right here you'll see a tab with your sketch name. For the RobotGeek 101 code, we're only ever going to use this one tab. You do over here have a tab manager where you can create, rename, delete, and navigate different tabs. This can be really handy once you've got more complicated code, and we'll look more into this in another video, but for right now we'll only ever use this one tab. As I mentioned before, we've got our code editor. This is where we'll put all of our code in just by manually typing everything in. Remember when I was talking about verify and compiling the code? Verify will also look for certain errors in your code, basically syntactic errors. That means any sort of code that doesn't make sense from the computer standpoint. So if I just put some random characters down here and hit verify, it's going to look at this code and then give me an error. Right here you'll see our main code editor. You'll remember we've got our line numbers and our code folding. You can also click on different lines, and in the lower left corner here you'll see the line number change. This can be sometimes handy if you're highlighting large swaths of code and you'll see the numbers that you highlighted. We're not going to get into any actual programming or coding in this video, but if you want you can go to File, Open, and really navigate to just about any of these examples. In this case, let's go Display Bar Graph. And you'll open up an example sketch that has all sorts of different code. So your project might end up looking something like this. Finally, down here we have the data console. So let's stretch out a little bit. We can use this bar here to get a little bit of more space. Here you're going to see the overarching messages, whether that's something like done compiling, done uploading, or error messages. Down here you'll get more information about your errors. So for example, I'm just going to throw some gobbledygook random codes that don't actually make any sense. This doesn't work and this shouldn't actually compile. So when I click verify, I'm going to get this error. Does not name a type. This is the code trying to interpret this data and it just can't do it. You'll notice it automatically highlights that line for you and it gives you a little bit more information down here. If I'm further away from that error, it'll even jump the code up to there. So this can be really handy when you're trying to debug what your issues are. If you have several errors, you'll see all the different errors in your console here. You'll also get errors down here if you've got some of your settings wrong when you do your upload. So you'll also see errors here related to uploading if you've done something wrong with configuration or something's not plugged in correctly. I'm going to use this option burn bootloader, which is an option that doesn't really make sense. And you'll get an error here as well as some information. Over here you've got some arrows that can open up the console all the way if you've got a lot of information there, or even make it go totally away if you just want to use your code window. That's it for this video. We will have more videos on more in-depth tools with the Arduino IDE, as well as hardware for the Geekduino. And then we'll go on into our main RobotGeek 101 lessons, learning how to actually code and get the Geekduino to do some pretty cool stuff.